Hi, and welcome back to Politodoxy. I'm your host, Aaron Friedman. Today we have a special guest, Hayden Laye, the chapter development coordinator for Dems for Life. And I want to first start out, first for thanking you personally for being here. And I want you first to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on today. My name is Hayden Laye. I'm the Chapter Development Coordinator for Democrats for Life of America. We are an organization that represents Democrats who are supporters of the consistent life ethic and more specifically against abortion. And we fight uh, for a party and a country that adheres to the values of the consistent life ethic. So, in addition to being against abortion, we are also against the death penalty, against assisted suicide, and we are very much currently, right now, we are promoting a lot of stuff surrounding making birth free and also reducing the maternal mortality rate across the country. So those are kind of our efforts right now.
That's absolutely amazing to hear. Uh, as my viewers know, I'm a conservative, but you are a Democrat. You're a liberal, but so that begs the question: why would we be conversing in such a manner in such a way? Well, the answer to that is, well, life is worth it. It is worth it fighting for life. We could put all other matters aside. All other things could be debated in a different setting. But this specifically is to discuss what pro-life measures could be taken, what could be done within even within the Democrats Party. Now, I don't. I'm gonna be mostly. I think I'm gonna mostly be speaking to Democrats, either who are pro-life, who want to be pro-life, or um, who they might not be pro-life, but they might be open to the subject. And also, tell we're going to be talking about how we can get more liberals on board with the pro-life movement, because conservative mostly, predominantly, are pro-life, but unfortunately, liberals aren't predominantly pro-life. But that is why we will be discussing mostly how it affects into liberal politics and how we could stay consistent with being liberal and also being pro-life. All right. So first, I want to ask you, as a liberal, how did you come to this conclusion about pro-life? Because normally, how politics works is it's mostly one idea leads to another. It's ideology is mostly consistent within the parties. Um, Although of course there are a lot of hypocrites, but it's mostly consistent. One idea leads to another. So, how would a liberal come, especially somebody as yourself, would come to the conclusion of, you know what, pro life just makes sense?
I would say my political journey has been all over the place. So going back to kind of the beginning, I grew up and still live in a very small rural town called Walhalla, up in the northwest corner of South Carolina, out near Clemson University. Um, so I had, my family wasn't very political, um, but I want to say around end of second grade, my mom was a history teacher, teaches history at the local elementary school. I saw her teaching history one day and took a keen interest in history, which led into presidents. And then being in South Carolina, 2016 rolls around, and you have all the presidential candidates coming around making their stops that want to get your vote for the Republican primary that year. Um, so actually, Valentine's Day of fifth grade, I skipped school and went down to Anderson, South Carolina, with my mom to go see Jeb Bush. So I actually started out my politics in the Republican Party, seeing Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio. I never went to see Donald Trump. And that's kind of where my involvement in the Republican Party ended, was with Donald Trump. I believed at the time, I still strongly believe, that his values and mine don't line up almost at all. I don't believe that he is pro-life either, in any sense of the matter, especially recently, post Dobbs and after he's been out of the presidency. So when Donald Trump won the nomination, I switched over and became a Democrat. Abortion was never really brought up. I was in middle school, never really heard the word abortion. Um, but when it did finally get brought up, and I was probably a freshman in high school, right before the 2020 election, I knew that I was opposed to abortion from the moment I heard the word, and from because I knew what it was. It wasn't hard to understand what abortion was. My grandmother had a miscarriage before having my mother. And so I was always taught that life began in the womb. It wasn't a new concept to me. So I always knew that life began in the womb. And so when I heard the word abortion, I said, this is wrong, and I'm going to fight against it. And people said, you can't be pro life and a Democrat. So I basically went and devoted most of my time to being a pro life Democrat because I not only believe, just as a human being, that it's wrong to kill other human beings, but specifically as a Democrat, Democrats are supposed to stand up for the most vulnerable and the voiceless in our communities. And, I think that goes from the immigrant to the inmate, all the way to the preborn child, and all human beings at all walks of life.
Well, on the subject about Donald Trump not being pro-life, definitely he has taken the position of being pro-life to utilize it to get more people on his campaign. I personally do believe that actually that he is pro-life, although he did criticize Ron DeSantis for signing in a pro-life bill, which you could read into it two ways. One, he doesn't really believe it, or he's just it's politically expedient for him to attack Ron DeSantis on literally anything and everything, so he'll just attack him on something that would actually very much irritate the pro-life movement, which of course it did irritate me. So, but again, we have disagreements, but that we won't let that get in the way. We are here to focus only on one thing about being pro-life. So, my next question to you is that as a pro-life Democrat, how do you how do you get how are you more persuasive in getting liberals who as you said that they told you, well, you cannot be a pro-life Democrat. As a matter of fact, I think it was Pete Buttigieg who was asked the question in 2020 in the 2020 election if there is any space for a pro-life Democrat, and the woman who asked it, who is a pro-life Democrat, said he said that no, there is no. Essentially, it boils down to no, there is no space for you in the Democrat Party, which is terrible for the party itself. So how do you how are you persuasive in trying to get more Democrats, showing them that listen, you could still be a Democrat, you don't have to agree with the Republicans. Which, by the way, another thing I want to point out, what I am happy about is that as a liberal, you joined the Democrat Party and you are pro-life. Why? Because we have so many conservatives or so-called conservatives or Republicans who they say, "Oh, I'm the real conservative. I am the real. I represent really the party." Meanwhile, they're just liberals, and this is what irritates me. You could be a liberal. There's no problem with you being a liberal Republican, being a conservative Democrat. There is no problem with that. Just know what you are. So it made sense for you. You will be a liberal Democrat within the party, and be pro-life, no problem. But you know where you stand, so that's very important. Anyway, so as a Democrat, how do you get more people to see your side and join the movement?
Yeah, well, I did want to touch on what you said about Pete Buttigieg. The person who actually asked that question, Kristen Day, is actually my boss and the head of Democrats for Life. And so, I also think Pete is kind of alone on saying that pro-life Democrats aren't welcome in the party. I think if you look at other Democrats, even Bernie Sanders had said that there is room for pro-life Democrats in the party. The House leadership, from Pelosi to Hakeem Jeffries, South Carolina's own Jim Clyburn endorsed Henry Cuellar, who is right now our sole pro-life Democrat in the House of Representatives. So, I think more Democrat leadership is realizing that there is room for pro-life Democrats because And we see this going on in Mississippi right now. We have a pro-life Democrat running for governor of Mississippi against one of the most, if not the most, unpopular Republican governor in the country, Tate Reeves. And he's polling like he could win this thing. Brandon Presley, the Democrat, can win this thing, and he's pro-life, he's pro-gun, he doesn't believe in trans surgeries for minors. So I think we have to realize that those are the types of Democrats that can win in these rural areas, these pro-life, more conservative Democrats that are still going to expand Medicaid and do everything else to help their communities. Um, Going back into your question about how we can appeal to Democrats to become pro-life, one thing I hear a lot about from my fellow Democrats talking about pro-life people is that we're not really pro-life, that you don't care about the death row inmate, you don't care about gay people, you don't care about this, and you don't care about that. Well, when you talk to us, we do. We do care about the death row inmate. We're against the death penalty. I'm inclusive of LGBT plus people. You know, so I think that's and that's kind of one of the main things I hear is that you're not really pro-life. Well, we can go and say, well, we are pro-life, and we're not just pro-life on abortion. We are pro-life for the whole life, and that's our thing as followers of the consistent life ethic. Um, so I think that's the major point. And we hear my body, my choice, that you can't have an opinion on abortion if you're a man. And we're headed by out of the national staff, half of them are women. We have women leading many state chapters. Um, so I think specifically when you talk to Democrats for Life, as a Democrat who a pro-choice Democrat might be speaking to us, 99% of the time we can bounce back on any argument they have against us, whether it's like that we're anti-woman or we're just not pro-life, because we are pro-life, and we're pro-life for the whole life, and we're proud to be pro-life for the whole life.
Well, I'll just say that personally, the death penalty, I do believe in the death penalty. It's a very important tool. But again, this is disagreements that we could have. And by the way, because I'm pro life, I'm pro death penalty, which means because I understand that if somebody takes away somebody's life, which is immeasurably valuable, now you have to pay the ultimate price. Now you could say what gives the state the right. Well, that's a totally different debate that the society could make. I believe that the society does have a right to decide if somebody takes away somebody's life. Now they could take this person's life. It has to be prudent, of course. It has to be without a reason, without a shadow of a doubt. All of that, fine. But again, that's different. That's a completely different debate. On the subject, have you ever joined a pro-abortion rally, been out there talking to them and trying to see where they come from? I mean, on the field, I know exactly. You know all the mostly the abortion arguments. Basically, all pro-lifers have to come to terms with those arguments, know the arguments, and know how to combat them. So that's not my question. My question is, have you ever been on the field talking to pro-abortion protesters?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time last year in Washington D.C. While the Dobbs stuff was going on. When there was the decision days, and there would be people out from both sides, particularly getting closer to the end. And I've had those conversations. We've had pro-abortion events in my county and down at the state house in Columbia while we were debating the heartbeat bill and other abortion legislation. And you do have those conversations. So I have had those very tough conversations with pro-abortion people. I've had them many times, and I think having those conversations, I'm always open to a debate. I'm always open to having my mind changed. I am steadfast in my beliefs, and I'm going to protect my beliefs as best as I can. And if I can't protect them, I'll change my views. I'm open to changing my views. But in all my times of talking with a pro-abortion person, I've never once heard a good enough argument to really think to myself, oh well, maybe this is a right. The closest I think that's ever been has just been more intimidation that we won't let you in our democratic circles. But I don't think they honestly have um, really good arguments, and I think they can be squashed pretty easily.
So, do you when you you said you already went out there and dealt with people, debated, and all that. So when you find yourself in the group, you find yourself debating and walking around. What is the atmosphere? What does it feel like to be in that atmosphere? Versus if you have been at a pro-life rally, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I have my biases, and I'm prejudging this, but I'm pretty sure, I assume, that the atmosphere is completely different between pro life and pro choice or pro abortion, in my point of view. And there's an
Yeah.
entire different atmosphere. One way I see is full. I'm going to use this word. Other people might get mad. One side I feel it's full of hate, although not everybody is there to hate. But the movement, the in large, the group is is oriented towards that, and on the other side, it's full of love. And
Yeah.
I want to know. I have never participated in both. I've not participated yet. So I want to know, as somebody who has participated, if you have participated in the pro-life movement, in the pro-life rally, I want to know if you've seen this, if you can confirm this for me.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I'd written it down in my notes. I was going to say that exact same thing. I think in the pro life spheres, there's a very big sense of community. I've met people from coast to coast. I'm from South Carolina, but I'm helping out our Ohio chapter right now because we have the abortion amendment coming up. And, I got on and people were welcome, hey, Hayden, how are you? Welcome. But,
And this is as a Democrat, right? This is as
this
a
is us
liberal
Democrats
Democrat.
too. Yeah. And and then you get into the pro-abortion circles, and it's just filled with, you know, darkness and evil almost, because in my line of work, being in the movement for a few years now, I've really seen the full scale of what the abortion side is capable of, the late term abortions, the abortion funding and everything. It's always just filled with a sense of hate. People, they're there for, and a lot of time, they are there for the money because, if they get their victory, the abortions keep coming, the blood money keeps coming out. They're there for the money. They're not there for community. They're not there to help other human beings. They're there for the money. That's my opinion. They're there for the money, and they won't. And it's just full of hate and evil. But that's my opinion. And just kind of being in those two spaces, seeing we'll have rallies back to back. At the Supreme Court, you'll have pro-choice on the left and pro-life on the right, and there's a divide down the middle. And on the pro-life side, there's a sense of community, there's a sense of love, helping these mothers out with pregnancy resources at community centers and at pregnancy resource centers, sidewalk counseling, handing them free information, loving them and loving their baby and helping them out in any way that we can. Financial assistance, housing, transportation, whatever. And then on the other side, especially when I've seen sidewalk counseling, in DC and here in Greenville, South Carolina, and down in Columbia and other places, the clinic escorts, they're there. They're there to cause a disruption. They're there. I've had a cowbell ring in my ear for 4 hours standing out at the abortion clinic in Greenville. They scream at you. One of them is on trial, is about to go to trial right now. They're being charged with assault and battery against a pro-life person trying to stand out there and pray. It's just hateful. And, they're taking these pamphlets away from these women, taking away their resources, and, just trying to get them into the door, get them, not talking to them, just getting them in the door as fast as they can so they can go in, get an abortion, and they can get their payday.
So, according to you, it is the pro-abortion movement is why it is full of hate, as you confirmed it is full of hate, and why it is also, I was about to ask you, but you answered it apparently, that it's full of hate because there's blood money involved. There is there, which is in part, I do believe there's a lot of that, especially when it's funded by Planned Parenthood, which, as I recall, in some places Planned Parenthood is going bankrupt in some states, which is awesome to see. But then there are the scared mothers, the people who are being taken advantage of, the people who are not hateful, although they do have a semblance of hate, not because they are hateful at heart, but because they are trained to hate by people who are actually fundamentally hateful. They're trained to hate because they're told, well, they're taking away this right. And I mean, if somebody's going to take away my rights, I'm also going to hate that person. I'm not going to make any excuses for that person. I'm also going to hate. So you can understand where they're coming from in the concept of hating somebody because you're taking away the right. So for those people, how would you think would be the best way to make them understand, and maybe not even get them to be pro-life, but at the very least get them to agree, you know what? At this amount of time, the baby is an actual human being. I understand you don't want to believe that you don't want to believe that the child is a child at conception. Fine. Let's first take small step. And at this point in time, which point would it be? So what would you think is the best way to talk and make them understand that this is not about hate, nor is this about taking away rights. Actually, it's about affirming rights, the rights of the most vulnerable among us, preborn children. What would you say is the best course of action?
Well, I'll be honest here. I've tried to have those conversations with people. I've seen some people say, okay, well, let's limit it to 15, 12 weeks. At that point, they're nearing viability. They're almost fully grown. They're months into growing. They look like a child at that point. But in complete honesty, a lot of these people, you can show them the science day and night, 24/7, 365 days a year. And they'll just say that's fake news, that's not real. And they're denying it. They're in denial about it. And, that's what I see a lot, more often than not, is just plain flat out denial of the scientific evidence that we present that says these are preborn children. They have a heartbeat here. They can feel pain here. And they have fingers and toes here, and all this and that. They're just denying it. And that's because that's the only way that they can keep their beliefs, is that they say, oh, well, that's just not true. There's no way that's possible. You're lying, you're liars, this and that. It's just denial. And so that's what I see more often than not, is just the flat out plain denial of everything, even when we do try to have those conversations.
So you say that they don't want to see, they don't, you could come with all the facts, as Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings. But I counter that with, well, guess what, their feelings don't care about your facts. You could be a robotic, even more than ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, but general artificial intelligence, something with all the intelligence of the world, knowing everything on the internet, knowing everything, all the wisdom of the world, but yet you come with all the technicalities as a robot. Guess what? They're humans. So you come with all the technicalities, they don't care. They have feelings, so feelings don't care about your facts. So I guess my question is, what would be the best way to, if we're not gonna go with facts, do you think that showing them the photos and the images of the babies who were aborted? You've seen the pro-life uh, movement, especially on Instagram, Twitter, and all those places, all social media have been posting photos, videos, and so on of embryos,
Mm-hmm.
actual babies, and completely butchered, completely guts hanging out, all that gruesome stuff. Do you think showing them that to the, and now we're not talking about the militant ones who are celebrating abortion, because they are not going to change it. They are going to see that, and they might just frame it and put it on their wall. That's how demented some of these people have become. But the ones who still think, who still go by safe, legal, and rare, which never made any sense actually. If it's going to be, if it's it never was safe. If it should be legal, then why should it be rare? Who cares? If it's a moral, if it's something you should be allowed to do, then who cares? If I mean, if I want to drink soda, I should be able to drink soda. If I want to do some kind of behavior, nobody has any right to tell me I shouldn't, as long as it's not affecting you. So it never made any sense. It can't be safe. It cannot be legal, and therefore it also cannot be rare. But so those people, they want, they still believe in that idea. So would you say to them, the people who still trying to find this point where they could have both sides, they're not extremist about it, but they also want to still have that so-called right, for those people, would you say it's better to show them the photos, show them the children, and confront them and make them see, okay, you see, this is what you're advocating for. This is how old it is right now. This is an aborted baby. Not only showing them this is how old they are, because I mean, they're still not a human. Okay, here's the aborted baby. Are you going to say, yeah, this is fine? So would you
Yeah,
say that this would be a more effective way triggering their feelings? Because
yeah,
they mostly they go more by, as you said, they go more by their feelings instead of the logic. Here's the logic, here's the science. No, we're not going to look at that. We're going to go by our feelings. We feel like you're taking away a right. So would you say it's better to show them, oh, you're very strong connected with your feelings, here is aborted children, what do you have to say?
Well, one thing I want to touch on while we're talking about this is so a little over a year ago, I don't know if you know about the five babies that were discovered in Washington, D.C. at a late term abortion facility. So those were actually discovered by two friends of mine, Teresa Bukovinak and Lauren Handy. Lauren is actually in jail right now in Alexandria. She's facing up to 11 years in federal prison for a rescue she did trying to stop abortions at that same facility, trying to protect children from being killed, particularly in later in term.
What is the
Um,
crime? What is the technical charge?
for Lauren,
Yes.
she's being charged with. So this ties into the what is called the FACE Act, the Federal Access to Clinic Entrances Act,
Mm.
which was proposed and signed into law by Bill Clinton way back when. That basically says that you cannot block the entrance to an abortion center. It makes it a federal crime. And then she was charged with conspiracy to deny people a right, which we don't believe abortion is a right, of course. So that's what she's being charged with. But they found these babies later on, and these are whole children. You can go to JFOR five, the number five, .com, and see these babies if you want to. These are five whole human children that were killed by abortion. And we've done victim imagery with them, showing these babies that were illegally aborted. So we're demanding autopsies. DC is heavily pro-abortion and has not been helping us at all. Of course, they've been trying to obstruct this, I believe. But these children that were illegally killed and by an abortionist, and even those that were legally killed by abortion, we've done victim imagery, and I think that's a very effective tool. And that's what changed. That's what really brought me into the pro-life movement. Was I always knew I was pro-life, but really seeing the images is what did it for me to really get involved and push for a immediate end to abortion in my community. And so it's a lot harder to deny because that people will still try to deny it. But when you look at people looking at those images, you can see it in their eyes that they are disgusted by that they don't want this going on in their communities, because these are the same abortions that are being committed in communities across the nation that still have legal abortion, from here in South Carolina to Washington D.C. to California and everywhere in between that hasn't banned abortion yet. So I think that's a very effective tool. I think that showing these victims is what they deserve. I think the victims deserve to be shown that these victims were killed legally in our community. And if you can't look at them and say, I support that, which most people can't do, I think most people are pro life once they just see what abortion really is.
Would you be in favor of a federal ban on abortion, since we live in the post Roe era? This something like this could be a possibility, and personally, I am in favor. But I want to know, what do you think?
Definitely, yes. I think that we need to see limits enacted on abortion um, across the country at every level, from your local city council. We're trying to push the Greenville County Council in South Carolina right now to pass an ordinance that would specifically outlaw abortion within Greenville County, as we wait on the state to hopefully enact stricter legislation themselves that will affect Columbia and Charleston. Um, I think that we need to see this on the local, at the state, and at the federal level. We need we need protections for preborn children across the board. And that saying that we can only protect preborn children from abortion at the state level is absurd and ridiculous. If you morally and truly believe that abortion is wrong and that it should be stopped, then we shouldn't be leaving it state by state. California and Illinois, I think Tim Scott is right on this when he mentioned this at the debate. California and Illinois should not have abortion all the way up until birth. Right now, Lindsey Graham, South Carolina's very own senator, is proposing a 15-week limit on abortion. We strongly support that. That will
Ironically, Republicans actually don't support it, and they'll tell you why. Because the Democrats are so against it that this will mobilize Democrats. Because Republicans, here's another thing that we have to consider: we have to also be strategic about it. So we could start bringing up all these kinds of bans and advocating for it, and we could have senators introduce bills. I do not support that. You know why? Because unless you do both, getting first incrementally, but also um, walking through, guiding through the culture and the society through the steps, and explaining yourself, being transparent, and not only that, also showing love, all of that, and explaining exactly what's going on here. If you try to force it down people's throats, you lose the election, and then what happens after that? The entire effort was for nothing. So that's why, as a Republican, I actually opposed that bill specifically on the point that, what are you doing? We are right now before an election. Why are you introducing it right now? Are you trying to sink our chances of winning? I actually do believe that he was trying to sink the chances of Republicans winning the Senate. That's a personal belief. Because to Mitch McConnell, which again, these are the corrupt Republicans, which I guess we could both actually agree they kind of are. But Mitch McConnell would rather stay in power as the Senate minority than to actually be forced. Oh, okay, now you have the Senate, and also you have the House. Okay, now start doing something. Oh no, he likes the status quo, so he doesn't really want to do anything. So he's like, okay, the Republicans will have the House, and the Democrats will have the Senate, and we won't have to do anything about anything. We'll just create gridlock. But that is why I opposed the bill, only because I know that this is going to affect the midterms, and it's not a good idea to lose elections based on principles. If you could have principles and ideals and all that, no problem. You got to play the game strategically. You got to stack up the wins when you can. If you see you're not going to win, take it slower. Take it slowly. Don't introduce bills that'll get people riled up and vote against you. So that's why I oppose that bill. But on a principle ground, of course I support a bill to limit abortions, but not now, not here, not in this way. So you were saying, let's go back to what you were saying.
What was that? Sorry.
Let's go back to what you were saying. We were on the discussion about Lindsey Graham introducing a so-called pro-life bill.
I mean, I think we might again disagree a little bit here. I think, especially with the way that the House is set up. The House elections are every 2 years, and I think we saw this after Dobbs came out. The Republicans had a horrible showing in the midterms afterwards. I'll be completely honest. We right now we have a 0-6 record for winning abortion amendments at the state level, from uh, Vermont and California all the way to Montana and Kentucky. I think that we do need to have better messaging on this end. Ohio is going to be pivotal. This election coming up in Ohio is major. We're going to have abortion on the ballot in 15 different states next year, from Florida to Missouri and Maryland to New York and everywhere in between. We really do have to work on how pro-lifers can win these elections. And I think just really, let's look at what they're pushing in Ohio: abortion on demand up to birth, and there's no parental involvement. That right now, the language written in the Ohio amendment would say that you can get an abortion up to birth, and any individual can get it, not an adult, not a woman, any individual. That doesn't limit it to people over the age of 18. That's anyone, no matter their age. And, a doctor can decide to do an abortion whenever they want to. And so, we really have to hit hard on that this is really their end goal. This is the abortion movement's end goal, is abortion up to birth, taxpayer funded, and no parental involvement. And that terrifies people. That's terrifying. That's terrifying to think about. But I think in the end, what Lindsey Graham is doing, if you look at how developed a child is at 15 weeks, that's months into a pregnancy. 15 weeks. Look at that. 15 weeks, just 15 weeks, nothing else. 15 weeks.
Well, that case has to be made. That case has to be made effectively. You can't just introduce a bill before an election,
I
knowing that you have no chance of passing it, and then expect people to just accept it. You have to be able to, to use a corporatist term, to market it. You have to be able to show people, we're not trying to jam this down anybody's throat. This is enough time. Think about it this way. You have to be persuasive about it. But if you're going to do that and you're going to lose elections, then you lose everything.
I agree on that end. So, but let's look at this way. Right now, California, Vermont, Michigan, last year, or what are my years at this point? Yeah, last year, they all passed abortion up to birth. California, late-term abortion. Illinois, late-term abortion. DC doesn't have any limits on abortion. This 15-week limit is solely a limit to cap states from allowing abortion up to birth, because that is the abortion lobby's end goal, is abortion up to birth. This is what Lindsey Graham is doing right now. He wants to put a cap on late-term abortions. What else are they doing? They want to put a cap on taxpayer funding of abortions. Those are not extreme positions to hold. These are not Alabama abortion laws. These are very common sense abortion laws that most Americans agree with. But you just have to say it like that. People don't want taxpayer funded abortions up to birth. And that is what Lindsey Graham and Tommy Tuberville of Alabama are trying to stop. Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama right now, is trying to stop the taxpayer funding of abortions through the military policy. And, we support that. Joe Manchin has been very supportive of Tommy Tuberville's work to try to stop that. And so, these are very bipartisan issues that I not only do most Americans not agree with abortion up to birth that is taxpayer funded, most Democrats don't either. Most Democrats don't want that. Most mainstream Democrats who are normal, everyday citizens don't want that. But I don't think most people honestly know what's going on that end. The mainstream platform is, we support a woman's right, but you can support a woman's rights without supporting abortion in general. But I still think if you're pro-choice, we can still put limits on taxpayer-funded abortions and late-term abortions.
Definitely. So here's what I propose, and this is I made an episode on this. It's called Dirty Politics, where I discussed this. I also made another episode debunking basically most of the pro-abortion arguments. And this is an idea that could be found controversial even among the more what I call the feel-good conservatives. Conservatives who play, let's play nice, because as we know, since the 60s, we have become much more liberal. But I asked the question from those conservatives, Have the liberals played nice? No, they've been very militant about what they have to, what liberals do. So what I say is that you have to engage on the same level that they are engaging. You have to show the same amount of force. So, and that episode is called "Dirty Politics." Why? Because it kind of seems dirty, but here's the tactic. Instead of trying to push through bills with immediately, which you should, but not at the moment. And at the moment, you should be trying to persuade people. At the moment, you should be building a force and an understanding. If not being pro-life, at the very least, being pro a cutoff date at some point or another. How do you do that? Well, as we have seen, the Senate and the House, they can bring people to testify and talk about a whole number of issues. Abortion should be one of them. Bring up the people who have been affected by abortions, of botched abortions, people who might have missing limbs, who have been scarred and mutilated but survived. Bring them. They should be the face of the anti-abortion movement on the House and on the Senate. Make the Democrat senators, who are, if there are any Republican senators, sorry, make the Democrat legislators, as you could do it throughout any of the states as well, not only on the federal level, do it throughout the states. Make them answer to these people who have been scarred for life why they think you should not be alive right now. It'll be one hell of a picture to see Democrats or even Republicans who are pro choice make the argument, you know what? I think you shouldn't be alive right now. How this would be one hell of a picture. It will be absolutely astounding. They will not probably not even show up because they know this is they can't do it without looking bad, and that's the point. Trap them, put them in a position that is so uncomfortable that they can't even approach their position without being shown. This is the face of a person that has been affected by an abortion, survived, and has a right. This person has a right to live. Now make your case. Be consistent about it. You think that this person should have been aborted. Now make your case if this person should still be aborted. This person now is deformed for life. What do you have to say about that? And this again, this is why is this dirty? Because you might be exploiting them for your own gain and so on and so forth. The argument back to that is that, first of all, this we won't force anybody to do it. Anybody who has been deformed by abortion, who wants to testify and wants, they would be able to have their voice heard. They should be able to. Of course they should. That's number one. Number two, we are fighting for life. We're fighting for the rights of unborn children. So at this point, if it is dirty, fighting a little bit dirty, that you're not doing anything illegal, you're not doing anything terrible or bad. You're putting your opponents into a trap. Okay, fine. It's a little dirty, maybe. That's a maybe. But at this point, I would say you got to engage on the level that they do. They are vehemently pro-abortion up until birth. Okay, let's play this game. You want to play this game? Let's play this game. Now, you're pro up until birth. Now let me see you answer why you think this person should be dead right now. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. I think that there needs to be more congressional hearings on abortion related topics. You know, one story I would like to kind of mention is, those who have had an abortion and regret it. I know many people who have had an abortion and regret it. Uh, Specifically, I have a friend, Serena. She runs an organization called She Found His Grace Abortion Recovery. She was raped by her uncle at the age of 13 and taken for an abortion. She had dedicated her life, her time, her money to fight against abortion and help others who have had abortions recover from those abortions.
On the subject about as you said, there's another point to be made about this, that there are certain people who make the argument that what about rape and incest. So where do you line up on that?
As an organization, Democrats for Life doesn't take a position on the exceptions. We let people, make their own minds up about it. Personally, I am opposed. I think that there should be a life of the mother exception. But as to a rape and
As do
incest,
I.
as to a rape and incest exception, I am
Oh no,
very
that's I
much,
don't stand for that.
yeah.
I want to make sure. I just want to make myself clear. So I'm against if it's rape or incest. I don't think that has any bearing on the child's value. So that's why I oppose any in such case. Although I understand the argument, but I'm opposed to that. But in the case of the life of the mother, then I am for that because here's one of the arguments that I've seen floating around there. What if you're in a burning building and the child and you have a child and then a box of embryos? What do you save? And that's basically to trap pro-lifers. But it doesn't. First of all, it's an it's it's a miss. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not a it's not an equivalency because one is actively killing a child and the other one is not being able to save one. So first of all, that the entire narrative doesn't even make any sense. But even if we're going to go by that narrative, the problem is that yes, there is a value. There is a value to an immediate life, the life of the mother to the life of the child. There is such a thing of an immediate value, but and not only that, then there's the argument on the child. Okay, why would you save the child? Immediate value. And also, what if, let's switch up the story, what if the child, you have a child or my mother and somebody else's mother, whose mother are you going to save? Well, I'm going to save my mother. It's not that I value the other mother. I think the other mother doesn't have any intrinsic value as much as me personally, my feelings will tell me that my mother is more valuable. That's how it is. That's a human feeling. That's not a eternal truth. That's just a human feeling. So by saving the life of the child, that is an immediate split decision without thinking clearly, which actually it is a right decision. But still, if you're in a burning building, chances that you're thinking clearly is not 100%. But still, it is the moral decision to make because it is the immediate life. It is the life of a child already here right now, and it is a decision of passion. It is a decision in the moment. So that's why that entire argument falls apart immediately.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree with everything said.
So let me see, what else do we have here? So we have discussed tactics, what we could do to combat the pro-choice and pro-abortionists. Which, by the way, another thing I want to make clear about the doctors, and I advocate that you should also call them as I do. I don't call them doctors. I call them Mengele doctors because, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Mengele, who was in the concentration camp, the doctor who did all kinds of evil experiments in the concentration camp. So are they a doctor technically? Well, I guess they are technically a doctor, but they're a Mengele doctor to me. They're not doing do no harm. What they are doing is
Hmm.
an exceptional amount of harm. First, killing the child, scarring the woman for life, putting the woman's life in danger. No abortion is there's no such thing as a safe abortion. Putting the woman's life in danger, and as we discussed, there's also the cases of be the woman being taken advantage of. I think there was this story of I don't remember who it was, an uncle or a brother who raped a
Uncle.
yeah, that's your story. There's another one where
Oh,
I don't remember if it was an uncle or a brother who raped a minor and constantly I think over the I'm kind of loose on the details here, but as I recall it was for about 9 years or so, maybe less, constantly bringing back the minor um, and to Planned Parenthood, where constantly over and over aborting the child over and over again, and Planned Parenthood didn't do anything about it. They were just quiet. This is a true story. The details
yeah.
are a little off.
I think I know what you're talking about.
The details are a little off. You could go Google it for yourself, figure it out for yourself. Always, this is something that I say to my audience. Never take what I say one at just because I said it. You believe me. Figure out for yourself. Do your own research. Find out for yourself because um, I might be missing one way or the other. But anyway, Planned Parenthood didn't do anything about it. They should have put two and two together. They should have figured out. Wait a minute, this does not make any sense. This is absolutely atrocious. But they didn't care. Why? Because it's about money. Which brings me to my next point. I guess one of a good way of persuading liberals and people who are feeling like, Well, they're taking away a right. You could switch up the subject of, okay, let's look about it this way. If you are the head of the abortion industry, if you're the head of Planned Parenthood, and basically all of the money you make is through abortions, then the argument goes back that no, they're also making for mammograms and all that. No, they're not. Just look at the numbers. They're just not making money off of whatever services they say. They do like a little they like give you I don't remember what it is. They give you like a napkin or something, and that's supposed to be one of the services that they count. So they say we do like 10 kinds of services. Yeah, one is they give you a napkin, the other one they give you something else, and so on and so forth. They're not making money off of that. What they're making money off of is abortion. So you frame the subject of, instead of, if you are the head of Planned Parenthood, what would you do to increase sales? Well, you would be telling people, well, this is a right. You would try to get it up until birth. You would do all these things while denying certain scientific studies, denying all the other things. So instead of, it's um, they're taking away our rights, I think you should. There's another point. Talk to the liberal the way the liberal will understand. The liberal understands corporations taking advantage of the populace. They understand. Liberals understand that very well. That's a language that they could relate to. And nowadays we can see actually in the populist conservative movement. Um, Not talking about the neocons. They are terrible. But we're talking about specifically the populist conservatives. They also agree with this. So this is something that liberals and populist conservatives could come together. There are huge corporations, huge executives taking advantage of the little guy, taking advantage of the woman who doesn't know what to do. She's scared. So what would you say about that?
Mm,
Specifically about talking to the liberal the way the liberal understands. And I understand I'm talking right now to a liberal, so I understand that. But I'm talking to them, and this is to the conservatives. I'm not speaking to conservatives. You could say all the science, you could talk all about that, as we have discussed earlier, but you got to talk to a liberal the way the liberal understands. Talk to them about the look at these photos, look at these pictures, look at up until the point of birth, look at the corporations, they're making money off of this. This is not about rights. Maybe you believe it's a right. Okay, up until which point is it a right? So you talk to them in a way that they would understand and they could relate to.
yeah, I think that we have to talk to people in a language that they understand. And, I think that goes for people with different ideologies and people of different age groups. I think, if you're talking to, I think that we do need to talk about these issues in a certain way to, to children, make sure that they know that life begins in the womb. I always taught that from a very early age. I mean, obviously, I don't think that we should be showing them aborted
No, no, no.
babies.
Nobody is advocating for that. Not
No, but
not for children. I don't
not no,
even know if
definitely
it,
not for
I don't
children.
even know if 16-year-olds should see those stuff. I mean, they should be shown the child, that this is a child, but not any of the gore. Only, I believe, only adults should be shown that stuff, because that is real world.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be swearing right now, but that's real world crap that you cannot
yeah,
show any minor or anybody underage.
yeah. I agree, and
If they come by anything like that on Instagram, I mean, there are worse things on Instagram right now. But if they come by it, well, that's something that happens, which I don't believe that children or 16-year-olds should be on Instagram or Twitter. I don't believe it. As a conservative, I don't believe that. But
yeah,
if they do, well, that's the risk of the internet, I guess. But
yeah.
it should not
But
be shown.
but yeah, I think that we need to talk about this with all sorts of different people. But in talking with anybody about anything, you have to talk in the way that they'll understand what is really going on.
Well, I guess we have disagreed on a few things. We have come to agreements on other things. This is where we. So let me just get this straight. So you are pro-life up until you're pro-life the entire way, and also, as I understand, you are also against the in cases of rape and incest. Have I
Yes, sir.
am I clear? So we're more or less the same amount of pro-life, maybe a little bit different on tactics. I believe in different tactics than you a little bit, but mostly the ideas that I put out, the ideas that you put out, we mostly agree. I guess the only disagreement was on the Lindsey Graham issue, about him bringing out that, and I don't think that was the right thing to do, because you want to be strategic, but you believe that it's worth it for the principle. Am I right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so that's a more disagreement in tactics, but more or less we agree on the principles, on the fundamentals, and
Mhm.
which brings me to another question. And I saw that post, and I'm full aware of that post that you put out. I don't know if you did, but I know your Twitter account did, of people asking you, why aren't you conservative? Why aren't you conservative? And as I recall, what that post said was, because the whole point of us is to be Democrat pro-lifers, to build a coalition and build bipartisanship. That is kind of the point. If we have all the people who agree with you on one side, then it only looks like it's only delegated or only reserved to one specific niche of people, and the rest of us are not like that. So what you're saying, as I understand it, is we have to have a broad scope of people who to show that this is actually much more popular than it is. Which, by the way, this brings me to another point on the, as you said, men shouldn't. Not you said it. You said, quoting them, that men shouldn't have an opinion on abortion, except, this is what I want to add, except if it is the right opinion, which is that it should be, that women should be allowed to abort their children, and as the Supreme Court said, that women are not the Supreme Court, the previous one, that so-called established that right to an abortion. Except those were all men, right? That those
Yep.
people didn't have a problem with that. Suddenly, no, men shouldn't have an opinion. So that's so but the problem is with that the pro-life movement, I think, is a majority women, as I recall. I may be
Yep.
off, but it's, if not a majority, it's at the very least 50-50. As I recall, it's actually a majority. But
Yep.
would go ahead.
And I mean, if you look at every single major pro-life organization right now, from Democrats for Life to Students for Life to Live Action to whatever else, every single one of these organizations is led currently by a woman, and I think that's very powerful. You know, women are, I think, more likely to be pro-life than men, because forever and ever you were told, and I was told this, all that I'm still being told this, that only women can have an opinion on abortion, which is just not true. And like you said, I still fully believe what I said, of course, or else I would have deleted that post. It's not, you can't have no uterus, no opinion. It's no uterus, no opinion if you're pro-life. If you're pro-choice, you can be a man and have an opinion. Of course, if you're pro-choice, you just have to have the opinion they want. And, I still think that's fully true today. And, going back to what you said, I think that we do need, on 99% of other issues outside of abortion and a couple of other little things. I agree with the Democratic Party on most issues and left leaning values on most other things. So that's why I'm a Democrat right now. We Democrats for Life is working on a project. We are Dems because and we're going to be highlighting members that of why we're Democrats, because oftentimes we get told, well, you're not a real Democrat because you're not pro-abortion, which we say real Democrats support the vulnerable and the voiceless. But that's a project that we are working on right now. And one good quote that I did see this week from a former Democratic Congressman, Colin Peterson from Minnesota, is he said that he remembered that not too long ago, being pro-life was not a partisan issue. That we had a pro-life Democrat caucus in the House. Dan Lipinski, Colin Peterson, and many other pro-life Democrats. Now we
How
are,
many years ago?
um,
This is the federal house or this is a state house?
the federal House. I'm not honestly 100% sure when the caucus disbanded. Um, I'm not sure on that. I should know, but I don't. I am sorry.
Regardless, continue.
But yeah, so I mean, we show that being pro life, you know, it's not a partisan issue. Um, Prime example, Louisiana. Louisiana right now is led by a pro life Democrat who is governor, John Bell Edwards. He signed into law one of the strictest abortion bans in the nation, and that law was written by a pro-life Democrat who is a black woman, Katrina Jackson, from up uh, in the upper part of Louisiana near, I think it's Monroe. Don't quote me on that though. I could be getting her district mixed up. We have a lot of pro life Democrats down in Mississippi. Joe Manchin right now, not all the way, of course, is fighting against federal funding of abortions. Same thing with Henry Cuellar from Texas. We have a very solid pro-life Democrat running for governor of Mississippi, Brandon Presley. He is an amazing candidate, running to restore voting rights, running to expand Medicaid and keep hospitals open, and also standing up for preborn children in the womb.
Well, that is again. You speak about pro-life Democrats, which again I can't, as a conservative, who if there is a pro-life Republican running against a pro-life Democrat, of course I will endorse the pro-life conservative because that is first you're a team player. I expect the same from you. You would also be a team player to the party and play by the game by the rules. But if I would again, so I can't say that, okay, so I want these people to beat Republicans or win. But again, it is important that you may spread the awareness that these people exist. For any pro-life Democrats out there, hey, there's a pro-life Democrat you could vote for. You don't have to vote for the Republican. And I think that's a good message. I wouldn't endorse that message because as a conservative, I played I I'm a team player. But again, as a but as a pro-life Democrat, we have to have people like yourself to show that you don't have to vote only for the Republican. There are choices. There are a lot of choices you could go. As a matter of fact, sometimes you could vote for the Libertarian, although the Libertarian isn't always pro-life. They are more like, okay, let's leave it to the states. They don't want to really answer, not all the time, but a lot of the time they don't want to answer on that. By the way, which brings me to another point. And so you want to say something? Just give me just one moment about. Just want to say this about Barry Goldwater, which, by the way, I really love what he had to say. He was running against Lyndon Baines Johnson. It's a tragedy that he lost, but he was, as a matter of fact, the libertarian. He was conservative libertarian-ish, and he was, as I recall, he was pro choice, as I recall. He was great on the issues. This one issue, he was not so great on, but. And I guess this is at a time where you could afford yourself to be more pro-choice because the country was more or less more pro-life. You had laws throughout throughout the country where the states outlaw it. So you could be like, okay, so I'm pro-choice. Yeah, I'm not going to do anything about it. I personally, I'm pro-choice, but I'm not going to do anything about it. It's basically the same that the feckless pro-life Republicans who say, yeah, I'm pro-life. They get in there, don't do anything about it. And they don't even advocate. They're not like, okay, I can't push a bill because it's not that popular. They literally don't do anything about it. So what you were about to say something.
Well, I did want to point out one other election that took place last year in West Virginia. Very ruby red state.
I think it's right
Yeah,
behind Wyoming.
yes, Wyoming, Oklahoma, West Virginia are all very up there. So one of the reddest states in the country. They had a bunch of state senate seats up for elections, and I'll let you guess how many do you think Democrats won?
Where?
How
In
many?
West
How
Virginia?
many do you think? How many seats do you think Democrats won? I can't remember how many. What? How many it was out of. But can you guess how many
House,
they won? It was in the state
state.
senate.
Oh, state senate. I don't know how many there are to win, but just to throw out the number, an uneducated number, I'd say five.
One. You want to know who that was?
Who?
It was a pro-life Democrat running against a pro-abortion Republican. That was the
Wow.
only place Democrats won. They are now down to like two or three Democrats in the state senate now, and he was the only one that won because he was a pro-life Democrat running against a pro-abortion Republican, which also happens to be in a part of the state that I spent some time in, Huntington, West Virginia. Didn't even know it was represented by a pro-life Democrat, so it made me love the area a lot more. But that was the only state senate race up for election last year. I think it was only about, it had to have been about half were up, and then the half will be up in 2024. But that was the only one that was up for election that Democrats won. It was a pro-life Democrat versus a pro-abortion Republican. So, pro-life Democrats see success across the country from Louisiana to West Virginia. We have a great pro-life Democrat, Trinae McGee, up in Connecticut, actually. So, pro-life Democrats are winning in blue areas, too. It's not just these conservative Democrats in these blue states. Trinae is an amazing pro-life Democrat, and she fought hard against abortion expansion in Connecticut, and a very blue state in very stark contrast to West Virginia. And, she fought hard against it. And, not everybody in the party has been happy with her, of course, but, she won re-election. And so, she's been an amazing Democrat up in Connecticut.
Also, I just want to clarify myself. So when it would be a Democrat running against a Democrat, I will endorse the pro-life Democrat. If it's a Democrat, a pro-life Democrat running against a pro-life Republican, I will probably this is not fixed rules. These are subject to change. But I will endorse the conservative. If it is a pro-life Democrat running against a pro-abortion Republican, then I do have a problem. I would probably not endorse any of them. Depends. Actually, this depends. It depends where the Democrat lines up nationally on the other issues. But there's a possibility me endorsing a Democrat, pro-life Democrat. But there's a possibility me not endorsing anybody or saying go third party, because going third party is to say that I'm displeased with the Republican candidate because specifically he is pro-life. Pro-abortion. So that could also send a message. And here's one last point, which it kind of bothers me I think this will be the last thing we could have here on the agenda, is that it bothers me very much when we have the absolutist pro-lifers who would they like Mike Pence, which he doesn't have a chance of winning the nomination on the Republican side, but he's very pro-life. Yeah, but is he effective at all? Is he going to win? No, he's not going to win. So why are you pushing this guy? That's number one. Number two is this is my main problem: the absolutism. It's Mike Pence on one side, where we're going to support. Oh, this is the most pro-life candidate. Okay, we're going to be pushed. This person is not viable. No, we don't care. We're going to be pushing this guy. And then on the other side, you have a Republican that would be running in California, where he has no choice but to appeal to Californians, who is a vast majority is liberal. So he will say, I will not support a pro-abortion an abortion ban on the federal level. And the pro-lifers will say, well, we can't endorse him. I'm like, well, he's a Republican. First and foremost, he's a Republican. But second, of course, he has to say that. He's in California. So first, you got to do the groundwork in California. But second, you endorse this guy. This guy, if you have him in the Senate or in the House, he doesn't have to vote for an abortion ban to vote with you on general matters, such as defunding Planned Parenthood or enacting certain laws that would hinder Planned Parenthood on other things. So this could be laws that won't be pro-life on paper, but would be pro-life in its technicality, that it hinders Planned Parenthood in certain ways. Like in New York, you have a problem where they enacted that you have to give over all your social media, all your private social media. You have to email and all that if you want to have a gun. If you want to buy a handgun, you have to give over all your social media. Well, You could do that same thing in a Republican state or in a purple state. Say you want to have an abortion, this is certain private information you'll have to give up. Oh, now people are gonna think twice. I don't want to give up those private information. At worst, what happens is it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says it's not good here or there, so you get back privacy rights in New York. Or if the Supreme Court says you can't do that, well, you now enacted new pro-life legislation that now people are going to be afraid they're not going to want to get an abortion. So you can have those kinds of pro-lifers, so-called pro-lifers, or people who are not pro-life, running for for state office, for political office. You can have that, but they don't have to come out and say, I am pro-life. Well, you're not going to win. You're just not going to win in California with that attitude. So have you seen, question is, have you seen that absolutism within the pro-life movement, where it's either the most pro-life guy who is unviable, or it's the not somebody who is not pro-life but could help you out in different ways and with technicalities?
I have seen that more with legislation than with candidates. And I think that is to a point that, um, on that end, as a pro-life Democrat, I just don't see eye to eye on that, because we are still left leaning on the other view. So, we aren't going to support the viable Republican either.
Yeah, obviously.
Of course. So, I don't guess I'm probably the best person to touch on that point, but I have seen it more when it comes to legislation. In South Carolina, we were debating abortion legislation for most of the past couple of years now. And so, there was this one faction that was just like, we have to pass a ban at conception, nothing less. This is all we will take. And then, the most that we could really get out of it was a heartbeat bill, and that's what we ended up supporting. I said from the beginning, I'm going to continue to push for a ban at conception, and push for stronger protections for preborn children. But this is what we can get right now. We just don't have the votes in the Senate to pass a total ban. Would I like to see that? Yes, of course, I would love to see that. That is the end goal, in my opinion, on the legislation pertaining to an abortion ban. Of course, there's a million other legislative goals that we need to be met on the pregnancy support side, of course, and on that kind of stuff. But we just don't have the votes, and we can't get that passed. So let's get the heartbeat bill passed. Let's protect the majority of preborn children. Let's protect let's get what we can get. This is definitely going to reduce the abortion rate. We've seen in Georgia, and there was actually a report out today from the Guttmacher Institute, which is a pro-abortion research arm of Planned Parenthood, or it was. I think they've split. I think they're two separate things at this point. It was saying that, if you look at states, South Carolina in the first 6 months of 2023 saw a 50% plus increase in the number of abortions compared to that same time period in 2020. But if you look at Georgia, as the state right next to us, a state that did have a heartbeat bill in effect, not a total ban, but did have a heartbeat bill in effect, they saw a sizable decrease in the number of abortions committed in the first 6 months of 2023 compared to that same time period in 2020. Is it no abortions going on like there is in Tennessee or in Louisiana where we have John Bell? No, not right now. Not right now. But, Georgia did see a sizable decrease in the number of abortions committed. The South Carolina Supreme Court just let our heartbeat bill go into effect. We immediately saw a 50% or a 75, no, let me get this right, 70% decrease in activity at the Columbia and Charleston Planned Parenthoods. The day it went into effect, they had to cancel appointments. So we are already seeing this take an effect. And, we're seeing preborn children protected in South Carolina now. Are we going to go and push for stronger once we get a new Senate elected after the 2024 election? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And, that's definitely going to be a priority for us. And, next year in in 2024, while we're waiting on the election, we're going to go in and we're going to push for stronger pregnancy resources, increased funding to our pregnancy resource centers, lowering the maternal mortality rate, and all these other different things.
That is awesome to hear. Not only that, I guess one of the main points we could also make here is that as a pro-life Democrat, it's important for you to not only to stay as a pro-life Democrat, because it's not only about um, staying with democratic issues, democratic values, and not that democratic the small d, talking about the party issues. It's important to inspire Democrats to become pro-life. So that's why it's important to have Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other, conservatives together, and yes, of course, libertarians, to have them all come together into this one issue we unite on. On other issues, we have to divide on, and not divide on by polarizing as enemies, but as political opponents. Understanding this is my boundary, this is your boundary. We can debate, which is great. As a matter of fact, I encourage this. I say, please, all Democrats, please make yourself be known. Tell don't try to play. Oh, I'm a little Democrat. I'm a little liberal. I'm a little conservative. No, you know where you stand. Make yourself be known and know your boundaries, and then know your political opponent's boundaries. That doesn't mean you hate him. He's your political opponent. That's what they're for. They're for debating. They're for, well, I think it's dialogue. I think the meaning of it is logos. Is dialogue, logos, as in divine logic. I guess as I recall, that's the meaning of it. So we need that. So that is why we need to have pro-life Democrats to inspire more pro-life Democrats to run. And the main issue is here being pro-life. That is why I'm calling for conservatives. You don't agree with the liberals on certain issues. Democrats don't agree with Republicans on certain issues. This one issue right here, right now, this point in time, if you could agree on this one thing, push it through, build a coalition. That is why we need people like you to push through these kinds of things. So that is why we are very appreciative. And again, if there are pro-life liberals, pro-life Democrats, they might feel a little uncomfortable joining. I'm joining the other side. It's kind of scary. It's kind of scary joining the other side because they disagree with you on the vast majority of issues. This one issue you agree with them, you're always welcome. As you said, the pro-life movement mostly is full of love. They will not attack you. They would maybe there would be vigorous debate. They will not attack you. They will not attack you, not personally and not politically. They will probably debate you on certain issues. That's not a problem. That's literally what we're here for. So
Yep.
I thank you very much for joining me, and
No
I want
problem at
to,
all.
for anybody who wants to get involved, wants to reach out, all pro-life Democrats that are listening right now, where do they get involved? How do they reach you? And where is there anything else that would come in handy for them to know? Any other information that would come in handy for them to get involved if they really want to get their hands on this?
Well, getting involved is literally my job is to get people involved in Democrats for Life. We're starting up chapters left and right in Nebraska. I'm leading the Carolinas chapter right now. I just got off a call with our great Ohio team. So, we're starting up chapters across the nation, getting them restarting, bringing in new blood. So if you want to get involved, go to democratsforlife.org or reach out to us. My email is Hayden, Hayden .laye at democratsforlife.org. And if you send me an email, we'll get you connected to your state chapter, and we'd love to have you. I've been with Democrats for Life as long as this is the organization I've been involved with for the longest, as long as I've been involved in the pro-life movement. It's a great organization, and it's a very unique organization, and there is a lot of community. And, if you want to get involved, just let us know, and we'll be happy to bring you on board.
Well, now it's my turn. I'll go ahead. If you want to reach out to me, you could reach out to me at AaronPolitodoxy on Twitter, or at politodoxy@gmail.com on email, or on Instagram at Aaron Friedman. If I ask everybody, please share this episode. This is a message that has to be spread amongst everybody, literally. This is a very important subject. Please share this episode, and also leave 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify, you could also leave a comment in Spotify. I think it's a new feature that you could leave a comment there. You could say what you have to say. And again, the most important thing is you could share, leave 5 stars. And thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And remember, my fellow radicals, stay political.